you hear me okay, Hans?
Yeah, I'm okay there.
Right. Hi, everyone. Lee Ashby here from Motocross Memories Worldwide. As a lot of you now know, that I was going to be doing a special series of Speedway interviews with some legends. And I've got a massive legend for you tonight. Absolutely amazing interview. He's got no less than 22 world titles, including 4 individual world Speedway titles. He was called the Main Dane and the Professor, I believe, as well. Mr. Hans Nielsen. How are you, Hans?
Yeah, good, thank you. I hope you're all right.
All good, thank you. Unbelievable to get you on. Really appreciate your time. Amazing to meet you.
Pleasure. Same wise.
Top man. Right, I'll get on to these questions with you. Right, here we go then. How did you get into Speedway, and what was your earliest memory of the sport?
Well, I had two. Well, I still have them. 2 older brothers that started riding before me. Partly that's why as well. But also they just happened to open a speedway track not far from my home. My elder brother was riding at a neighbor club in Aalborg, and so I've had sort of a little insight in speedway. And of course, at the time, a couple of years before, in '71 when Ole Olsen won the world title, obviously for the first time, we saw that on television. So obviously that spurred me on a little bit as well. So yes, they opened this track near my home, and we started on the 50cc, which was actually the beginning of the 50cc class in Denmark, and probably the first in Europe.
What was the actual track that you actually started on then?
Well, that was a bit smaller than they are today. Today they're about 200 meters, but now they are using 85cc, and then we was on using 50cc. So the track was about 130 meters, so it was a little easier to get a skid on when the track was smaller and didn't have so much horsepower. Whereas now with 85cc, they can get a skid on even on the 200 meters. So it's been really good for Danish Speedway, and I believe that is part of our success, that we started so early.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of that. It looks really good. Right, next one I've got for you. What riders did you look up to and idolise when you were young, and why? And did you ever get to race any of your heroes and idols yourself?
Yes, I think both Ivan Major and Ole was my heroes. As I said, we watched them on TV, and obviously with them being multiple world champion as well. You look at their style, what they did. On at the starts and stuff like that, and then eventually to ride against them both when I first came to Wolverhampton in 1977 as a young 17-year-old, that was huge. Obviously I couldn't beat them, but starting next to them was quite a feast.
Was that quite surreal for you at that time when you first did that as a youngster?
Totally, obviously starstruck, and I was taken welcome quite both when I first came over, and Ola came over to me at Coventry when I rode there for the first time and said welcome to England and everything, and wish me luck. So that was really big.
That was amazing for you then. Really cool. Okay, the next one I got for you is who were the toughest riders to compete with in your British League racing days, and why?
Well, at first when I came over, obviously it was the likes of Ole and Ivan, and they were at the top at the time, and they were really tough, and the riding styles and the way they rode hard at each other at the time was probably harder than it is today. Yeah. So I felt the force when you try to maybe sneak around them or something, the gap was shot, and so it probably shaped me a little bit as well, my kind of riding. I could be pretty hard sometimes, and I think I believe that was formed when I first came over, and but then sort of in the latter years, obviously the guys like Eric, we had some great races, and really decisive and tough races, but it's enjoyable, and we've always had a lot of respect from each other on the track, and had some great races, but there was lots of good guys obviously at the time with remember, obviously at Swindon, we had Phil Crump. I used to have some really great close races with him around the Swindon track, and I enjoyed the Swindon track a lot because I thought it was probably the best racing track in England. And and with him, riding there, we're obviously having a bit of a home advantage. It's tough to beat him, but I did, managed a few times. but also obviously the likes of Panel and Cigales and lots of other great riders over there. It's been really great racing in England, knowing that all the great stars and the best riders in the world was racing there week in and week out, and you had the chance to beat each other and on many occasions. So it's not like nowadays, you hardly have any of the top guys in England, which is a shame, but
Yeah.
certainly then that is where you have to be.
Yeah, for sure. The 80s and 90s era was superb.
Yeah, incredible.
Really cool. Right, the next one I've got. Was there a certain bike stroke engine you rode over the years that was a favourite? And if so, what year and years was that and why, if you remember?
Well, I rode a bit of everything. Obviously, when I first started on my first year, there was only the 2-valve Jawas available, which I rode for a year. And in that same year later, when the Danish Junior Championship came on, I actually had a brand new 4-valve Westlake given to me. It was actually my hometown that had a collection to get the money together for this engine. So that was quite a story. And when I went to the junior final, I actually won at 15 Max, which was very unexpected because I wasn't really that known in the country at the time. So that was my Westlake Times. I rode that for a few years, and that was the one I rode when I came to England, and kept riding for a couple of years or 3. And then in about, I think, 81, I changed to Gordon, and that was to be my obviously my most successful spell in both league and of course world championship wise. So obviously that has been my main engine in my career, and rode that till 92. Then I changed from Gordon because I think on Gordon was just being a little bit too slack, as far as developing the engine compared to the GM had come on the market a few years before then and was taking over a little bit, and I was sort of in minds what I'm going to do, but I did actually swap back to the Jawa, although it was four valves at the time, and decided that they were at the time working hard on developing the engine and had a good deal with them. So I rode that for the rest of my career, but I only rode the upright for 1 year on the Jawa, and then after that, I think it's 93. That was when I started racing it as a Laydown, which was tuned by Klaus Laus. So and then for the last few years of my career, I rode the Laydown Jawa, which was going very well.
What did you find the difference between the Laydown and obviously the upright? What did you feel about that?
Well, it was funny really because I thought, when they talked about having laydowns, I think they came out on the long track first, and I thought I was actually riding representative in the FIM at the time, and I actually suggested that we should ban these laydowns, now coming out on the long track, and I thought it would be silly having them in Speedway because everybody would have to change everything to But the FIM thought that, oh no, we can't. Their comment was that, we can't stop progress. So I thought, well, okay, in that case, I'll go and make one myself. And so I was one of the first one that started riding it when Klaus Laus came and offered me to try. He's actually made 2 of them. So from then on, I rode them, and obviously a lot of other guys started as well. And I thought it was a more difficult engine to ride, or bike to ride, with the laydown, because although the theory was that it should be better because the weight was closer to the ground and everything, but we actually lost a lot of torque, bottom power on the engine, which made it more difficult to ride. So I didn't actually like it that much, but it was faster. It was revving better on the straight. It was fast on the straight, and possibly a bit better at the start as well. So, but it's more difficult to ride. So looking back, I think it would have been better. We would have stuck to the uprights. I think it was a safer bike and easier to ride.
Okay. Did you actually have a favorite bike? As in, was there a certain engine that you had, and then that was so really good until something happened to it or something? Or
yeah, I think when I first won the title in '86, that was a really good engine, and I actually still had that the next couple of years, and it was probably the same one I won in '89, I think, actually. So that I had my own kind of private tuner for many years. When I got onto the Westlake, I had a friend from not far from where I live in Denmark, and he was into cars and was actually tuning his own cars at the time, or sometime before that. And then we met. We decided that he should have a go on tuning my bikes, and he actually did for many years until I moved on to the Laydown. As I said, and it was Klaus Laus that helped me out.
Oh wow, that's a really cool story. Right, next one I got. What was your favourite tracks in the British League and why? And also, what other favourite tracks did you have around the world as well?
Well, I mentioned Swindon before.
Yeah, you mentioned that. Yeah, touched on that. That's cool.
I liked it a lot. But later on when I came to Oxford and rode there regularly, that became my favourite track. Obviously, there was a couple of track guys there that was really good at preparing it exactly the way we wanted it. And the way I wanted it was plenty of dirt, and that was really fun for the 9 years that I rode there. It was a really perfect track, and enjoyed it very much. But looking at other tracks around the world, I think Voyen's been pretty good over the years. That was quite a good track and a good racing track. And of course, I think also thinking back with all the great victories I've had there as well, it's sort of made you think that it was a nice track as well. So that was probably, and it's the same track that are there today, But apart from that, I think Vetlanda, I rode a few years for Vetlanda in the Swedish League, and that was a great racing track. It had a sort of a funny fourth corner where it was more pointed, and you can sort of pass on there, and it was great and really well prepared as well.
So basically, as long as it had some dirt on it as well and a good shape and you could pass, it was sort of...
Yeah, it helps. I think these days I've probably changed my attitude a little bit towards what is a good racing track. And I think nowadays, it proves that having a track with a little less dirt, a little bit of dirt, a little bit on the inside, a little bit on the outside, but not too much, because if it's too much, everybody's going so fast and probably the same fastest racing line. And when you're behind trying to pass on the outside, you just get so much dirt in your face that it stops you and you can't pass. So I think medium dirt is
happy medium. Yeah. Okay, cool. Next one I've got for you. You had a famous rivalry, obviously, with fellow Danish rider Eric Gundersen. You basically both dominated the amazing 80s at Speedway era of that time. Did you always get on with Eric, or did the rivalry sometimes make it a bit awkward? Because obviously you both won a lot of stuff together as in World Team Cups and pairs and things like that. So what was that like?
Yeah, most of the time we got on well. I mean, when we first came to England, I was over there the year before. I think it was it? Yeah, I was there in 77. I think he came over in 78 or 89, and we got on really well there. Obviously, we were competitors and had some good races on the track. But also, we saw each other off the track a little bit, visited each other with our girlfriends, and traveled on the road together to a few meetings. So that was great. We had some good times. But obviously, the better we got, the both of us, we got expecting to or hoping to trying to beat each other, and we were, two of the best riders in the world, and then obviously it became a little bit more a strained relationship privately, but it wasn't bad. We wanted to beat each other, but had respect from each other, and still travel a lot together on planes and stuff, and got on okay. But it was really until Ole Olsen got into the team managing role and decided that he was going to make Eric world champion, individual world champion, which I thought was a little strange to be a team manager and choosing a rider to be champion in ahead of me, because we were both pretty much as good as each other, and the same kind of riders. So I thought that was wrong, and so that created a lot of animosity between us, mostly towards Ole, but obviously that you couldn't stop being a strain between Eric and I as well, and that was a shame. And even though we rode together as a pair and also in the team for Denmark, it was it did create a bit of a strange
atmosphere
when we rode the team, and then having to ride against each other with Ola on his side in the individual world championship. So that was a shame.
Okay,
But after,
it was a great time.
After we've, after Ola then did, retired from his team manager job, then we gone fine again in '89. But unfortunately, Eric had his crash then in '89, and we couldn't race against each other anymore. So, but after that, we've had a great relationship as well, with him being obviously the team manager while I was still riding, and now that he's the team manager or the trainer for the young people, and I'm the national trainer for the grown-ups. So we obviously work together a lot now, which is really good.
Yep, it was definitely a special time seeing you two guys together. What track did you not like racing in the British League, and why? And what other tracks around the world did you not get on with too well?
Well, in England there was actually quite a few I didn't like.
Okay, this would be interesting.
There was the larger track like Exeter and Halifax. Exeter middle fence, and you had to ride on it to be fast. I really didn't get used to it. It was probably only there for a couple of years while I was riding. And Bex for the same kind of thing. It was really weird. And you got up there and having to race against the other guys like Kenny Carter, and that was pretty wild sometimes. So I wasn't keen on those two. But scary and dangerous. Yeah. So I didn't get on all that well at those tracks, but I think abroad it's been a couple that I it hasn't really been many, but you got across a couple of rough tracks here and there, and sometimes. But I remember there was a track in Elgane in Norway that sometimes was really rough, and the weather was pretty bad up there sometimes. But otherwise, they've been pretty much the same. The tracks around Europe, you had some long ones, some short ones, some fairly bumpy ones. The one really probably the worst track I ever ridden was a one-off track in Paris. We did an open meeting in Paris, and it was a pretty big track, and it was just made up with sand, and it was more like motocross than Speedway. Really tough, but I did end up winning the meeting, but it was you just couldn't go flat out around the track. You just had to be careful, and the bike was nearly falling apart, so it was that bumpy. So
sounds very dodgy. I remember the Exeter very well. Went there, and I remember Martin rode there in his career at one point, and we used to go holiday there and go and watch it on the Monday and see Ivan Major when he was at the end of his career was there. Do you remember? Yeah,
talking about Ivan, actually Hull was one of the other one that was.
That was quite similar. Yeah.
For being so narrow, and when I was Ivan was riding there, and I actually had some great races against him, but unfortunately, he was really good at making the start, obviously, and it was very hard to pass because it was so narrow. But the one race I was faster than him. I just tried to find a way around him and inside, and the one corner I just ditched inside him. I thought, there's room here, but there wasn't, and we both ended up in the safety fence and hurt ourselves pretty bad and had to go to hospital. But luckily we didn't break anything. But Ivan was pretty good about it. There was no animosity or anything. So that was nice.
That was all right then. That was good. Okay, my next one. Did you have any favourite levers or Kevlars you wore during your racing days, and why?
I had some special ones made up for when I did the first World Finals, when we were still using the leather, and I had some really thin, I think it was goat skin. I was just like couldn't feel it, and it was really light, and it probably didn't do much if you fell off, but it was it looked good.
Yeah, might hurt, yeah.
It was just the one-off for the World Final, so probably the best ones, I reckon.
Because I'm sure Jano Pedersen, didn't he get some special levers? I'm sure he had some levers like that when he did for his World Final as well, the one he won.
Similar. Yeah, Yeah, it was the same sponsor we had at the time, or the manufacturer that made it, BN Leather from Denmark at the time, and it could have been the same leather used for both of us.
Yeah, that's very cool. Didn't know that. Okay. Next one. Did you have any superstitions or anything you had to specifically do on race days or anything like that?
Nope.
None at all.
Yeah, no, I'm just I obviously you do your thing on the day, and which was me. I was never that good at sleeping in the morning, so obviously you have racing at night. You need to have a rest at some stage, and I normally just had like 20 minutes in the van on the way to the speedway track and stuff like that. But I didn't really have something that I had to touch or do, or certain glove I had to put on a special way or anything like that. Like a lot of other riders have.
Yeah, it's quite. I would imagine quite tiresome when a lot of guys do these sort of things and mental games with themselves and stuff. It must be.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, hard work. So it was good that you didn't do that. Right, next one I got. Where did you race as a youngster, and did you travel much as a youngster? Can you elaborate on that experience you gained before you went into the pro scene?
No, I didn't really. I hadn't really been abroad at all before I started racing, and so when I started racing the 50cc, we did actually travel across just on the ferry over to Gothenburg to do an indoor ice meeting on the 50cc, which was fun. But it wasn't really till I came to England, really. That was my first country that I traveled to. So it was quite a big step when I was 17 years old and going across to England. But luckily, my older sister, went with me the first week. So and I was lucky to come over to a really nice family, a family with 3 kids there, and they really took well care of me. So it wasn't so bad, but it was an eye opener coming to a totally different country, being away from the first time.
Straight in the deep end, then, literally.
Absolutely.
Learn fast.
Yeah.
No choice. Right, next one I got for you. Did you have any injuries during your career that you feel held you back at times from achieving even more in the sport? If so, what was that?
Yeah, there was a couple. Nothing serious, luckily, touch wood. I actually had an accident the first year I was in England, but on the roads in Germany, on the Autobahn in Germany, where we had a really bad crash with the mechanics, and I was in the van. It was actually Finn Thompson's van and his bikes. We were traveling across to Norway for the first time I was speaking for the Danish team, and the first year I was in England. But we crashed on the motorway real bad, and the van was rolling outside the motorway, and everything was smashed. I was, laying in the back, just behind the seats, and the wall in between the seat and the bikes crashed, and I was rolling around the bikes in the van, and we were, rolling down the hill, and one guy got thrown out the van and broke his back, and a few minutes later, the helicopter landed on the Autobahn and just stopped all the traffic, and luckily I only had a broken thumb. So 3 weeks rest in a German hospital, and I was ready to race again. But unfortunately, the mechanic who broke his back was pretty badly, and I think his leg and other stuff. So he was really, but he got over it after a few months. So that was lucky, but it was a really tough one. But as I said, that was the first year, just 3 weeks rest in the middle of the season. But after that, I had obviously a lot of crashes, but got away with it, and a lot of aching and stuff, but nothing broken. And I had, I first rode with Finn Thompson when I came to Wolverhampton, and he was, the number one there and was doing pretty well. The trouble was at the time, the best rider had first choice of starts, and obviously he was always choosing the inside, and but he was not letting the bike in the first corner. So when I started making pretty good starts, he would put me in the fence half the time. So had a few crashes there, but again, luckily no broken bones. So, but my first really when I broke was when I broke my foot in '92, and obviously couldn't ride for a few weeks. So it took about 3 weeks before I was back, and then my first meeting was the Nordic final in Norway. Scandinavian final in Norway in Elkana, and obviously being a bit rusty, I didn't qualify, and that was for the Intercontinental final, and at the time that was the way you obviously had to qualify for the World final, and So that was the only year that I missed the world final, from 80 till when I retired in 99. That was that 1 year. So certainly that had a bearing. I did ride, but I wasn't fully fit. I mentioned the track before. It was a really rainy day, and the track was really shitty and terrible. So that was a bit too tough on the day.
Injury, yeah.
And then that was that 92, I think. That was when Havelock won the world title, I think.
Was in Rat Trap. 92, Poland, wasn't
it? And then it was the next crash was that in 93. I broke. That was actually when I broke my foot. Before that, the first crash was a collarbone. So I said that 2-3 weeks, really achy. But in 93 was when I was in the world final in Voyens. I was a bit, it was the first meeting back after 3 weeks as well, and being a bit rusty there, but was close to winning. It was just that year that I changed to the laydown as well. So the first year I rode the world on the laydown, which was going pretty well, but as I say, it was a difficult bike to ride at the time because it didn't have much spot and power. So it was a tough world final because I was pushed off twice in my fourth race, and first time it was all four back. For the next one, I got disqualified. So I still ended up with having a chance in a runoff with Tony Rickerson in the final. But made a good start, but unfortunately it just started raining, and as I say, this engine you had to just ride it with full throttle all the time, otherwise if you shut off it would just die, which it did in one corner when I was just locking up a bit, just had to shut off a bit, and it just died, and Tony just went around me, so up straight or inside me, so and lost the title there. So certainly that was an injury that had a bearing on my performance here, unfortunately. But apart from that,
wasn't that the last one off world final, wasn't it? I think.
No. Well, that was when was the last world? That was 94.
94.
Was it 90? Yeah, that was 94. Sorry, yeah, that was 94.
What did you think about the difference between the one-off and the GP one? Did you prefer the GP or?
When they talked about it, they talked about it for a few years. I think first they started talking about it in probably about 90. They started talking about it. About that. And then I thought it was a really good idea when I heard about it. Obviously, it would probably help me. I felt that I was pretty consistent in most meetings. I thought it would be a good help for me as well. So being a bit selfish there, of course. But it, it did take a few years before they decided on having that. I mean, I suppose the first meeting that they tried out a little bit similar was obviously the 87 world final in Amsterdam over 2 days. But like a test and see, but as I say, it did take quite a few years until 95 when they had the first one. But obviously, I thought it was great, and I think the idea of having at that time it was only 6 meetings, but obviously even now when you have 10, it's even better with having a continuous world championship all through the season, and everybody talking about it every 2 weeks. You have a final, and you remember what happened, and people talk, and I think it's really great. And obviously, if you win a Grand Prix series of 10, you got to be the most consistent and best rider through the season. So a very worthy world champion, I would say.
Yeah, for sure. I agree with that. Next one, I've got, what riders were your favourite to team ride with and why?
As I mentioned before, I had some really good years at Oxford, 9 years, and Simon Wigg was riding for Oxford, and we had some really good races together, and he was a great guy, a good friend, and also, we were rivals as well, obviously in individual meetings, but we got on well and respected each other also when we had to race against each other, but we had some really great team racing at Oxford and riding together at other tracks as well.
Yeah. The next one I've got is what British track stroke venue had the best changing rooms and why?
Well, I can't really think of many good changing rooms.
The next question is the worst. So
what did impress me was the Wembley World Final. Stadium there was quite, it was huge, and you had their own baths and everything, and so that was probably the best one I can imagine. But most of the ones were really shit, unfortunately.
So the worst is pretty much a lot of them then.
Yeah.
Not too professional and all that.
Yeah.
Okay, the next one I've got was, what was your most memorable race or meeting, and why does it still stick in your memory even today?
It's got to be my first win in Warsaw in Poland in '86. Having been run-up for 2 years in a row. Before that, it was getting really important, and I was getting really desperate to win the title. So winning it there and the way it was won, and just the relief and the whole setting with about, I don't know, was it about 80,000 spectators in the Polish Warsaw Stadium, Slansky Stadium there was incredible. And having Ivan Media by my side for the first time, who was, as I mentioned before, a great rival, but become a good friend as well. It was a great occasion.
Yeah, amazing. I remember watching. Who were your closest friends during your Speedway career, and how was it? Was it easy to block out the friendship once the tapes go up?
Well, I think as Speedway riders and friends, it was difficult to have a friendship like that. But as mentioned before, Eric and I was pretty good friends at first. But obviously, when I first started on the 50cc, there was like 5 of us starting at the same time. Some of them from the same school, and we were really good friends, and we were partying and stuff together and getting on really well. So, but obviously, the more serious it got, the less the friendship, I suppose. But the first year I was on the 500cc as well. I was still riding, obviously, for my home club in Denmark, and my brother Henry, who also became a pretty good rider, and we were also really good friends, and traveling obviously together to all the championship. We were riding for the same team in Browston, so that was great. But as we got older, I wouldn't say that I had sort of any close Speedway friends as such. We all got on well together, but it was it was very busy. It's a busy career, and obviously we traveled to a lot of the meetings together quite often, and got on well. But friends as such is probably a strong word, but good acquaintances.
Yeah, that's it. Okay, with you on that one. Next one I've got is, how important was it to have a mechanic you trust and knows you well? And what mechanics did you get on with best, and why?
Well, I had all my mechanics were Danish, apart from one. We had Australian at the time, and for a few years, but I had some, they're all very good, and obviously I chose them partly because they were okay mechanics, and became hopefully better mechanics when they were working for me. I could teach them a few things, and all of them was very friendly, and we got on really well. I wouldn't sort of point one out, because they're all good, which I've been pleased with. They all got mainly Polish mechanics today, and I'm sure they're good mechanics, but obviously not quite the same as having a one from your own country, and the one you sort of to know better, and obviously spend a lot of time with, both when you are working, but also in your spare time sometimes when you live closely. So it's very important, I think, to also be friends, just a working relationship.
Yeah, for sure. Do you have any regrets from your Speedway career? Were there any meetings or anything that obviously is things that you probably feel that you should have won and done better, or was there ever any team that you wish you'd not rode for over the years, or was there anything at all really like
that? Well, I've got 6 run-ups, individual titles, if you can call it that.
Yeah.
And certainly a few of them I think I could have changed into a gold medal with a little bit of or doing things differently. But and whether it's difficult to say what's been my own fault and what's been unlucky or whatever, or have the other riders just been better than me. But certainly, especially if we were talking Grand Prix instead, if we run all those meetings as Grand Prix, I think I would probably have won at least 3 of them. But you know how it is on a one-off night, just a little thing that goes wrong, then you've had it. And so yeah, there was a few things there, but I think as far as my career, the way it turned out, the way that I did things as far as tuners and bikes and what have you, probably, as I mentioned, when I changed from my Garden, it probably would have been easier and better if I had jumped on the GM at the time. That was the ones Eric and Penol and everybody else was having a lot of success on, and it would have been easy for me just to jump on that, but I was, I think, a little bit stubborn. Maybe I thought, I don't want to just join the rest. I want to, maybe do something different. And as I say, I chose Java because I thought that could get that going, and it was a good engine, and I was pretty sure with my tuner we would get that going really good. But looking back, I think it would have probably been better to jump onto the GM that was proven, and could have probably won more if I went straight on that. But you learn by your mistakes.
Yeah, there's so many. I remember that there's such a fine line in there between, literally, like you said, some runoffs. I remember Billy Hamill literally snatching it in the last race of the final of the GP as well. I remember that one. It was like unbelievable.
Yeah, as I say, it's my own fault. I should have just won on the night instead. But I had a couple of bad races. He had things going for him. There was 3 of them Americans in the final, and they help each other, what you do, and what can happen on the night. And some you win, some you lose. But I thought I lost a bit too many, with that. But that's the way it goes. And you need a bit of luck, and some of the ones that I won, I probably had a bit of luck as well. So it goes up and down.
Yeah, for sure. Right, next one I've got. Is there a funny story you can tell us from your racing day memories?
Well, I think the first year that I came to England was definitely what I remember most. For being the most enjoyable. Coming to the new country, seeing all the great riders, meeting all new friends, and the likes of Ivan and Olle and even Barry Briggs was still riding at the time, and he was actually a really, really great guy, and I met him a few times throughout my career and after. A great guy, and he's still doing really well. At about 87 or something now, he's still playing golf and racing a bike, and I think. One of the first really funny thing and big thing that happened for me, that he rang me up one day that year and asked me, do you want to come to Holland and join me in an open meeting, individual meeting in Holland? And I was obviously a bit starstruck there as well, because I hardly knew Barry, and I probably hadn't even met him at that time, and I said yes straight away, and not sort of thinking what does that entail. I have to go to Holland, do an individual meeting, and not thinking much about things, and just said yes, and went off with him on the ferry over there, and we got there, and obviously had to sign in and show your license and license number, international license number, and all that, and I said, I haven't got an international license. and Barry would say, just give you a telephone number as being your license number. It'll be okay, he says. That was a bit risky. Luckily, I didn't do all that well in the meeting, so nobody in Denmark heard about it. But if they heard about it would have been banned. So. Great guy.
Right, you raced obviously in the British League all through the years, in the 70s, 80s and 90s, racing for Wolverhampton, Birmingham, Oxford and Coventry. You won league titles and cups, I remember, with Oxford, but what club did you actually enjoy racing with the most, and why?
I think Wolverhampton was very big, and for me, because it was the first year, it was very good, but certainly Oxford, the 9 years I was with Oxford, winning the titles and doing so, that was those years that I won the first 3 world titles, and was obviously a very, very big thing for me. and the whole obviously I said it was my favorite track, and the teammates there was really good. I mentioned Simon before, but there was lots of other guys. Andy Graham was there doing really well, Jens Rasmussen also, and lots of other guys, and we got on really well. And obviously being the most successful in my career team wise was with Oxford. So definitely the best years of my teams in England. Yeah,
great years. Next one I got. What would you consider were your biggest strengths as a speedway rider, and do you feel that you had any weaknesses?
I think we all got weaknesses, but luckily we also have in parts. And as far as league racing and daily racing was concerned, I think it was my sort of calmness and doing all the meetings sort of in a low-key kind of way without having to get too excited and just concentrating about riding the bike well and doing well. So that was in a force in a way when I did the league meeting, but on the other hand, it weakness when coming to the world finals, individual world finals, where you really had to be really switched on and really be riding 110 or 20% above yourself, and I didn't have that the first few world finals I did. So it was good in the leagues, open meets and stuff, but it was bad when it came to when it really matters in the world finals, because everybody else was really up and going there a little bit more. So that took me a few years to realize. But apart from that, I thought my technique on the bike and the way I rode fairly, I think, safely. I had control on my bike and was able to ride most tracks, different tracks. Although I did say that I didn't like the likes of Exeter and Halifax, but I could when I had to. But I think that was my consistency was a big force as well.
I think you was always a good gator as well, generally, weren't you?
Yeah, exactly. Glenn, you mentioned that. Yeah, it's definitely. Yeah, and when I said I've been fortunate not to have so many crashes, it's serious crashes. It obviously helps when you get down to that first corner and you got fresh air, you can't see anybody. It's certainly easier. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, cool. Next one. If you could re-race a particular meeting or race tomorrow in your full prime, where would it be and why?
Well, obviously, having ridden in Denmark, lots of world finals, the Voyage has been really good. But when they had the Parken in Copenhagen indoor, I really thought when I was over there, I thought it would have been great riding in front of your home crowd here in Denmark. So Cardiff was another one. Missed that one as well. That could have been really great. 1,000 people there. It was that's a hell of an atmosphere, and been there a few times watching and enjoying it. Yeah.
Yeah, and obviously for a lot of the British league racing guys, that sort of almost ends up as a home GP, the Cardiff, so it would have been like for yourself as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, next one. Obviously, you won a lot of things very successful, but what do you actually feel were your best achievements in Speedway?
I think that was that 86 world final, my first one, because when I've been run up twice, you start to doubt a little bit. You got people talking, will he ever become a world champion, or will he be one of the best ones ever that not have won final? So that was really, really important, and that was such a relief, and that was got to be the best that ever happened to me. And even if I hadn't won any more world titles after that, I wouldn't say it wouldn't have mattered, but it wouldn't have been so bad, because winning that one was important.
Special one, special. Okay, next one I've got is what mentors did you have in your career? I think you sort of touched on it a little bit. And was it a big benefit to your racing to have a mentor with you at meetings?
I think in those days you didn't really have much mentors. You didn't have coaches so much and mental coaches and stuff like that. So it was more like my brother and I got on well. We talked about things and the first couple of years and 3. But after that, when I came to England, I was basically on my own, and it was all everybody wanted to beat each other, and even in your team, there wasn't really anybody to sort of help much out. Obviously, Finn Thompson from Denmark was there as well when I first came over. It helped me a little bit, but again, he was the number one, and I was sort of threatening his position pretty soon after that. So he couldn't afford to help me too much.
Yeah.
And that's the thing in Speedway, we all good individuals, and at the time we didn't really have a national coach to help out so much. So, but after that, when I became pretty good and learned from just watching others, and that was basically what it was. You had to look around at the better ones like Ola and Ivan, and see what they were doing and trying to copy them a little bit, and then try and develop further from there on, which I did. And after that, as I mentioned, Ivan made it before, when after being second for 2 years, I thought I had to do something. I had one very good friend, and who was actually the team manager for a few years before Olaf Frimert Petersen, who then, when he retired from that, he did actually help me individually after that, and he was a really good friend and like a father figure. I lost my father pretty early before that, so he was a really great friend and help. And coach in a way that everyday life and helping out different ways, but certainly Ivan was the one that was helping me and also making a difference on that the final in '86 when he first helped to win the world title, and being great there with certainly probably mostly mental coaching more than anything, and after that, he helped me a couple of years more, and after that, I again was mainly on my own. And of course, Ola came in as team manager there in '84. But as I said, he wasn't really out to help me. He really worked against me. So, I suppose that could have been a learning curve as well, but not the way it's supposed to be.
It's a bit strange.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Which riders would you say that you didn't really enjoy racing against most, and why? Was there any riders that you weren't too keen on racing, a bit dodgy to race with? I'm sure there's a few of them.
I felt, I had respect for most riders, and I think they respected me, and I can't really. I remember Kenny Carter was a very tough rider, and sometimes probably was a little bit worried when he got a bit out of hand, but Ryan Sullivan, I had a few tough ones with, but nothing serious. But the couple that I can just think of, if anybody.
That's not too bad then. Who would you say were the 3 best riders that you ever competed against in your career, and why? If you had to pick 3.
Well, certainly Ola and Ivan, we've talked about, but obviously they were the good ones before I became good. Obviously Ola kept riding for a while, and we had some pretty good meetings against each other and became quite rivals. But obviously with Eric as well for many years, and Bruce Pennell was a great rival, and but also a pretty good friend, actually, a great guy. And there were lots of good riders at the time. Dennis Igales had some great races. I mentioned Phil Crump before. It was some good times and good meetings, especially in England. You were meeting each other home and away, and open meetings, and then world finals and British finals. Well, the BLRC it was called at the time, and so on. So it was great. Chris Morton, Peter Collins. I remember on the old Manchester track there was the really big one. We had some incredible races there. I remember I was the better gator, mostly doing making the starts around that track, but they were so good there, and they were just you didn't know where the hell they were coming from. And
Thank you. Would you have liked the new Bellevue? You'd have liked the new Bellevue?
Oh yeah, that's probably the. I think you got to rate that one of the best tracks in the world at the moment. That's really, really nice. So would have loved to race that as well.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, next one I got. If you could give good advice to any youngster who wants to be a pro speedway rider, what would it be?
I think when you first start out as a rider, I think one of the important things is the enjoying what you're doing. Obviously we all started riding speedway because we thought it's fun and to enjoy racing for the first many years and just make sure you enjoy it. because if you don't enjoy it, you won't become a good speedway rider. You got to work hard, you got to train and all that, and that is no fun if you don't enjoy racing. So that's the one thing you got to think of. You got to keep enjoying it and do things to make sure you enjoy it, and still when you're young, still do the things that young people do. Parents can be very demanding on their kids, wanting them to win when they're like in Denmark. You can start on the 50cc when you're like 4 or 5 years old, and if you got parents wanting you to win from the day one, it becomes not
so enjoyable.
A lot of pressure. So this is really one for the parents, back off a bit and let your kids have fun. And as I say, I think for many years you got to really, just let loose and have the fun you need to have when you're a kid and a young guy when up till you're about probably 18, 19, when it hopefully becomes a bit more serious, you become good and you need to compete seriously. Then obviously, you got to turn back a little bit on your going out and all that stuff, having fun, but and be a bit more serious. But as I say, make sure you have fun as long as you can. And I think when you become good, and you got to make sure to adapt a good racing, a safe racing style, so that you have control of the bike, so you don't go any faster than you can. And that's that's quite often when accident happens. That's when you just do that a little bit more than you really can handle. So it's hopefully a long career for you. So make sure you ride as safely as possible.
Sound advice. What other sports do you enjoy doing or watching yourself?
I've been doing a few different sports beside my speedway. I was windsurfer for quite a few years when I was living in England. There was a big lake nearby, and doing lots of that, which was really good for keeping fit as well. When you have some high winds and stuff, and really tough for your arms and hands and everything in your body, balance, and so that was great. A good way to relax a little bit off the when you're off the track, and my wife did as well a bit, so that was great. And then after I did that for quite a few years, I was unlucky to meet John McNeil in Australia. He was a promoter at Melbourne one day, and one day we stayed the night, a few of us, at his place, and the next morning he was going golfing and asked if we want to go and have a go, and we did, and I got caught out there and got hooked straight away on the golf. So that was a stop to the windsurfing, because obviously it's a lot easier to just have the golf bag in the bag and go to the golf course instead of having to wait for the wind with the windsurfer. So. And having that as a hobby as well next to the speedway was really easy and great to have. You have the golf bag in the van, and if you got an extra day in Sweden or Germany, wherever, Denmark, there's golf courses everywhere you go, and you can go and relax a bit and have a bit of exercise at the same time, and just clear your minds and play with friends. So that's been my main hobby ever since, and still is. And my wife playing as well, my kids been playing as well. So it's been a hobby too, yeah. So, but I tried most things, especially on the holidays and when we were racing in Australia, just doing a few meetings, one a week or something, being there for a few weeks. We got invited out to different things, water skiing and jet skiing and all sorts of things. It's been nice trying different things.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, cool. Next one I got. You obviously superbly won, I think, 11 World Team Cups for Denmark, as well as 7 World Pairs titles. But did you enjoy being part of the teams, and did you prefer racing individually, or did you mind both, or is there a preference for you?
Obviously it was two different things. I very much enjoyed the racing teams, both for the league teams and also for the national team. I know we had, 2 or 3 years problems with all of us, the team manager, but apart from that, I enjoyed very much racing for Denmark. And the first time I rode for Denmark back in 1978 in the World Team Cup in Germany, Landshut, when we actually beat England, being the outsiders, having qualified for the first time for the World Team Cup, and racing with Olle and Finn Thompson and the likes was a great honor. and really, really fun. And obviously, getting that Danish team jacket on is special. So I enjoyed that a lot, and then obviously, yes, the individual is a different thing, and of course you enjoy that, and that is what you strive for, to become individual world champion. So yes, that has to be number one. But certainly, as far as actually racing in a meeting, having your fellow team friends as well, having to work together is special.
Yeah, for sure. You won an amazing 4 world individual speedway titles. We sort of touched on it before. What did you remember about them, and was there any more special than the others? You sort of mentioned the first one was obviously special. Do you remember all of them? Wow. And
definitely, as I say, the biggest, as we mentioned, 86. But I think 87 was special, the way that it was run over two different days, and being behind after the first day. Eric was in the lead, and then having to crawl back the second day, and I did was quite special. Yeah, and it was in the old Amsterdam stadium, being really big, and quite a big, nice stadium. So they all had been special in one way or another. In '89 in the Olympic Stadium in Munich, a one-off world final there was a beautiful stadium, and winning it with a maximum obviously helped making it special.
Yeah.
So yeah, they've all been special, and obviously the it took a while before I won again in '95 in the first Grand Prix series, and so obviously that was special, being the first Grand Prix, yeah, and having to do well over the 6 rounds at the time was very special. So yeah, it's been fun. It's been a great achievement, and it's been fun at the same time.
Right, I've only got a couple more for you now. We did touch on this a little bit earlier. You obviously got to race in the new era of the GP racing, and obviously the one-off ones as well. You sort of mentioned that you thought it'd be better for consistent ones. Did you actually have a preference when you actually did it? Did you prefer the one-offs or the actual GPs, or is it frozen there? Stop recording. Still there, Hans? Lost you there, Hans. Lost you there. Still there, Hans?